Gen X fathers are a generation of men building fatherhood without a blueprint, creating their own model rather than inheriting one. Born between 1965 and 1986, many of them grew up without being shown what emotionally present parenting looked like. No one sat them down and explained how to listen, how to express love, or how to connect on a deeper emotional level. Instead, they learned indirectly through observation, through silence, and through noticing what was missing in their own upbringing. As a result, their approach to fatherhood is not copied but constructed, shaped by both memory and intention. They rely on trial and error, constantly adjusting, reflecting, and evolving as they go. This lack of guidance didn't weaken them. It forced them to become more aware, more deliberate, and more engaged in their role. Every decision they make carries a quiet awareness of the past, of what they experienced, and what they wish had been different. Their parenting is not accidental or passive. It is deeply intentional, built from a desire to close emotional gaps and create a more connected experience for their children. In many ways, what they are building is not just a parenting style, but a new emotional standard, one rooted in presence, awareness, and the determination to do better than what they were given. Gen X fathers show a level of involvement in their children's lives that marks a clear shift from the past, redefining what everyday parenting looks like. They are present not just in major milestones, but in the small, often unnoticed moments that shape a child's experience, attending school meetings, coaching sports teams, helping with homework, and simply being available to talk. Their presence is not driven by obligation or external pressure, but by an internal commitment to be there consistently. Even when no one is watching or acknowledging their effort, they still show up, reinforcing a sense of reliability and trust. This reflects a transformation from the traditional role of distant provider to an actively engaged parent who values emotional connection. They make time for conversations, pay attention to their child's moods, and stay involved in daily routines, turning ordinary moments into meaningful interactions. Instead of expressing care solely through financial support, they demonstrate it through attention, responsiveness, and shared experiences. Their parenting is not occasional or symbolic. It is continuous and integrated into everyday life, creating a strong emotional presence that their children can feel and depend on. For many Gen X fathers, parenting is no longer just a role they fulfill. It becomes a central part of their identity and the most meaningful aspect of their lives. Unlike previous generations who often define themselves primarily through career achievements or external success, these men increasingly measure their worth through the quality of their presence as fathers. Research consistently shows that a large majority of Gen X dads describe fatherhood as the most rewarding and important experience they have. This signals a deep cultural shift where emotional fulfillment and family connection take priority over traditional markers of success. They are not passive in this role. They actively seek to improve, learn, and grow as parents. Whether through reading, observing, or simply reflecting on their own behavior, they show a willingness to evolve and become better over time. This mindset reflects a level of intentionality that goes beyond obligation. It is about purpose. Their investment in parenting is not surface level. It is emotional, psychological, and deeply personal. Being a father is not just something they do, it is something that defines who they are, shaping their values, decisions, and sense of meaning in life. Many Gen X fathers were shaped by an upbringing where love was defined more by provision than by emotional connection, and this early environment continues to influence how they relate to their own children today. Their fathers often fulfilled the role of provider, working long hours to ensure financial stability, but were rarely present in the emotional landscape of the family. Conversations about feelings were uncommon, and affection was seldom expressed directly through words or physical closeness. As children, Gen X men learned to read love indirectly through gestures, responsibilities, and quiet sacrifices rather than open communication. A nod, a ride to school, or a roof over their heads became substitutes for, "I love you." While this taught them resilience and independence, it also left a gap in emotional understanding and expression. Many grew up without a clear model for how to talk about feelings or respond to vulnerability, and that absence does not simply disappear in adulthood. Instead, it carries forward, subtly shaping their instincts as fathers. Even as they try to be more present and expressive, they often find themselves navigating a space they were never taught to understand. working to translate a language of love they once had to decode into something their own children can clearly feel and recognize. Gen X men inherited a complex psychological legacy from their fathers, one defined by both strength and silence. They were raised to be resilient, independent, and disciplined, learning early on how to handle responsibility and endure hardship without complaint. However, alongside these strengths came an unspoken rule. Emotions were to be managed privately, not expressed openly. Whether directly taught or subtly reinforced, the message was clear. Being strong meant staying quiet, pushing through pain, and solving problems alone. Vulnerability was rarely modeled as something acceptable, let alone necessary. As a result, many Gen X men grew into highly capable individuals who could navigate challenges with confidence, yet struggled to access or articulate their own emotional world. This created an internal imbalance where competence and emotional distance coexisted. For years, this silence felt normal, even invisible, because it was all they had known. It wasn't until adulthood, often through relationships or parenthood, that many began to recognize the gap. This dual inheritance strength without emotional language became a defining trait of the generation, shaping not only how they see themselves, but how they connect with others, especially their own children. When Gen X men became fathers, many made a conscious and deeply personal decision to break the patterns they were raised with and create a different kind of emotional environment for their children. This shift did not happen by accident. It was driven by memory, by the quiet awareness of what was missing in their own childhood. Moments of emotional absence, words never spoken, and connections never fully formed became powerful motivators for change. Instead of repeating the same model, they chose to express love openly, saying, "I love you" out loud, showing affection without hesitation, and being emotionally present in ways they never experienced themselves. Their approach is not built on theory or perfect knowledge, but on lived experience and reflection. They give their children what they once needed, often without having a clear guide on how to do it, learning through practice and intention. This effort requires vulnerability, something they were not taught to embrace, yet they push through that discomfort because the goal matters more than the fear. In doing so, they are not only raising their children differently, but also redefining what it means to be a father, marking a significant generational shift toward more emotionally aware and connected parenting. In their effort to become the kind of fathers they never had, many Gen X dads find themselves drifting into overcompensation, driven by a powerful internal promise that their children will never experience the same emotional absence they once did. This promise often translates into an intense commitment to be present at every event, respond to every need, and fill every gap, no matter the personal cost. They attend every game, every recital, every meeting, and push themselves to stay constantly available, believing that consistency equals love. While this level of involvement creates strong emotional bonds and a sense of security for their children, it also introduces a quieter pressure beneath the surface. The desire to be everything their fathers were not can turn into an unspoken expectation to be perfect, leaving little room for rest or limitation. Many carry the weight of proving, not just to their children but to themselves, that they are different, that they are better. Over time, this effort can become exhausting, as no one can sustain that level of output indefinitely. The challenge then becomes learning that being present does not mean being everything, and that meaningful fatherhood is not defined by perfection, but by consistency, authenticity, and emotional availability. The shift in father involvement among Gen X dads is not just a perception. It is clearly supported by measurable data that highlights a profound generational change. Compared to fathers in the 1960s, the amount of time spent on childcare has more than tripled, moving from minimal daily interaction to nearly an hour of active engagement each day. This increase is not limited to basic responsibilities like supervision or logistics, but extends to meaningful activities such as playing, helping with homework, and having real conversations. What was once considered optional or secondary has now become central to the role of fatherhood. This transformation reflects more than just a change in behavior. It signals a deeper cultural shift in values and expectations. Gen X fathers are redefining what it means to be a dad, placing presence, emotional connection, and active participation at the core of their identity. They are no longer distant figures operating on the margins of family life, but integral participants in their children's daily experiences. This measurable increase in involvement demonstrates a conscious move away from the traditional provider-only model toward a more balanced and emotionally engaged form of parenting that continues to reshape family dynamics. Despite being more present and involved than previous generations, many Gen X fathers continue to struggle with emotional fluency, particularly when it comes to navigating complex feelings. When their children express sadness, frustration, or vulnerability, the instinct is often to fix the issue, offer solutions, or shift the focus, rather than simply sitting with the emotion. This reaction is not a lack of care, but a reflection of how they were raised, where emotions were something to manage privately rather than explore openly. As a result, moments that require deep emotional presence can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. There is often an internal hesitation, a sense of not knowing what to say or how to respond in a way that feels natural. This creates a subtle gap between being physically present and being emotionally available. They are there, they are listening, but the language of emotion is still something they are learning in real time. Their care runs deep, but expressing that care in emotionally nuanced situations can be challenging. This tension highlights an ongoing transition where involvement has evolved faster than emotional skill, and where learning to sit with feelings becomes just as important as showing up. Over time, many Gen X fathers come to see their own fathers through a more nuanced and compassionate lens, shifting from judgment to understanding. What once felt like emotional absence or lack of care begins to reveal itself as limitation rather than intention. Their fathers were shaped by different circumstances, cultural expectations, and emotional norms that did not encourage open expression or vulnerability. This realization allows Gen X men to reinterpret their past, not as a story of neglect, but as one of inherited constraints. In recognizing that their fathers did the best they could with the tools they had, resentment often softens into empathy. This shift does not erase the impact of what was missing, but it creates space for growth without carrying the weight of blame. It allows them to move forward with clarity, choosing to parent differently while still honoring where they came from. They are not rejecting their fathers, they are building upon them, expanding what fatherhood can be. In doing so, they create a new legacy, one where love is no longer implied through sacrifice alone, but openly expressed, emotionally felt, and clearly understood, giving their children an experience that is both rooted in the past and transformed for the future.